Today's video is a perfect example of what happens when I go onto my Discord server. It invariably leads to mild mutilation of some kind. But on a serious note, this is actually a really interesting topic. So a user on the Discord called Linus, of all things, needed more video outs from their PC, but they didn't have any more 16x PCI Express slots left on their motherboard, but they did have an old 16x PCI Express connector graphics card lying around. So not wanting to go out and buy a graphics card like a GT 710 that's specifically designed for this use case, they did some Googling and figured out that you can actually modify the 16x connector on a graphics card, if it's old and terrible enough, to work in a 1x slot. And by modify, I just mean savage with a hacksaw. And it actually worked. They posted video of it outputting a signal and all of that, so I just had to try it out myself. Now warning, this video is not for the faint of heart. Things get real graphic later on. So be prepared for that. But before we get into any of that, let's have a word from today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by World of Tanks, which is a PC game that's free to play with over 100 million players worldwide online. That's a lot. The game has over 550 different tanks in various sizes from light, medium to heavy. There are destroyers, artillery, all kinds of different stuff to shoot at people with. There are so many ways to play the game. You can be a complete coward like me and hide behind a rock, popping out every now and then, or you can do what that guy did and just run straight into action. Look at how quickly he died. You can also customize your tank with some awesome camouflage, and I put a bear tattoo just straight on the front of the tank to let them know I mean business. So if that sounds good to you, use the link in my description with the code TANKMANIA to get free 7 days of premium account, 250,000 credits, the premium tank Excelsior, and 3 rental tanks for 10 battles, one of which I lost pretty much immediately. So thank you very much World of Tanks for sponsoring this video. Now the first thing that I had to do was find a victim graphics card for this process, which was actually surprisingly easy to do considering that I am the proud owner of the largest collection of GTS 450 fake cards in the world, probably, maybe. So I was gonna use one of those. So here we have the victim loaded up into place just to see if it works or not. Now we get to the interesting bit. I had to decide how I was actually gonna go about savaging off that extra bit of 16x PCI Express connector. Now, Linus on the Discord actually used a hacksaw to cut it off. Now, I tried practicing on a dead bit of PCB with a hacksaw, but that is a really violent feeling process. I didn't really feel comfortable doing that, and it didn't feel like I was gonna be able to get just like a straight cut with it. Next up, I thought about using a Dremel, which is something that supposedly you can use, but there are a couple of problems. And the biggest one of which is the fact that you're gonna create a lot of fiberglass particles in the air, and then I'm gonna breathe them in, and then I'm gonna suffer from murder lung death, and I didn't want that to happen. Now you can also use a nibbing tool, which is what the person did that wrote the guide that I used for this process. But I don't have one of those, so I decided on using a scoring process. So you just use a very heavy duty craft knife and then you score on both sides of the connector multiple times and then just snap it off. One of the big advantages of this is that it's easy to make a straight cut, which I obviously screw up later. We'll get into that a bit later. And then there's the other advantage of you don't have all of this fiberglass particle that is going to lead to lung murder death. So I got all of the tools ready and yeah, again, brace yourself for this because I am not a tool man, okay? Even though I have a tech channel and I'm constantly using tools on things, I'm not very good with them, so try not to judge me too hard for the things that are about to happen in this video. Now we're gonna get started with what is definitely the most terrifying thing I've ever done to a PC component. Luckily, it's a scam card, right? So do we really feel too bad for it? Kinda still do. So we're actually gonna have to remove most of this PCI Express slot. So I'm actually gonna score it using this heavy duty craft knife. on both sides multiple times, and then I'm just gonna snap it off. We wanna save the last 7 pins here, so we're gonna count them off. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the last one that we're gonna save. Now, ignoring that half-assed mark we've got there, I'm gonna try and cut it just above the pins so that we don't damage anything higher up and that's important in the PCB. Okay, this is absolutely terrifying, especially doing it on camera. I did actually practice earlier on a different PCB, but yeah, so I'm gonna do a light score all the way along here. Now, one of the advantages of using a craft knife like this is that it is actually easier to have just like a straight line. And I say that as I don't have quite a straight line. Okay, so we've got a bit of a starter line going there. So I'm gonna be more careful closer to the edge here. It's actually, because we don't want to damage. Yeah, I'm just gonna do it up till about there, because you don't want to damage the 7th pin either, right? Okay, so let's flip it around and then try the other side. So again, we're gonna have to mark 7 pins along. Now, I still have the cooler on, which is probably not the best idea, but actually, if anything, it gives me a bit of leverage to use. So I'll place it down there and then there we go. It's like the worst feeling thing I've ever done to a PC component. Oh, there we go. Okay. Also want to try and cut. Just between those 2 pins to not damage the 7th one. Yo, this really feels like I'm taking a blade to a kitten's face. It's really hard going. So now I'm gonna use some pliers to just see how it feels, because there's a lot of materials been kind of removed here already. Yeah, I feel like we should score it more. It still feels like there's a lot of resistance. Oh! I just slipped and went over those pins there. Hopefully I didn't. I mean, that looks like a pretty catastrophic mistake. Maybe it'll be okay. I'm just gonna lie to myself and say that that's gonna be fine. Hopefully it still works. Okay, let's try with the pliers again. I don't know how good any of this footage is gonna be, but oh, there we go. See, look at that. Oh, look at that peel off. Is it in focus? I hope so. Oh, look at that. Oh. Look at that. Oh, it was out of focus in the last bit there, but so we've got, so here on this side, we've got a bit of, look at that. I mean, it looks like a 1x slot. We don't go in there. I'm really worried now about that bit of damage that we did over here. Hopefully it's okay. Okay, so now I'm gonna use a little file and I'm gonna file it down a bit. Now it's very important when you're filing stuff like this to have proper mouth protection on so that you don't breathe any of the fibers in. Okay, so with that, let's see if it fits in a slot yet. No, I think we're okay. I think it fits. But yeah, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna try and power it up and see what happens. Okay, there we go. I mean, fans are spinning. Look at that! Maybe I should just restart it, because I think Windows is acting up here. Okay, we've got, again, we have a signal out, which is already madness. This is already further than I thought this was gonna get. Drivers seem to be confused about what's going on. They seem to be recognizing it as a different GPU. The thing that blows my mind the most about this is it just shows how resilient graphics cards are. I mean, I just absolutely mutilated it with a craft knife and it's working. So what we're going to do now is we're going to wait for the driver to install, and then we're going to see what kind of gaming performance hit we get going from a 16x to a 1x slot. Now, my celebration of success, unfortunately, was not very long-lived because, well, I couldn't install graphics card drivers on the system. Every time it would either give me some installation error, or it would tell me that it installed, let me restart, and then just nothing happened. If I went into Device Manager, it gave me a code error, which is basically just a code for summon B. So I think that the Windows and the driver installs can recognize that there's something wrong with the card, but they don't recognize what it is. So even though we get just a signal out, which is already really impressive, yeah, we didn't get any kind of driver installation happening. I did try and run the benchmark again, but this is what happened. So yeah, unfortunately, this GTS 450 is not a fit for this process. Now, the guides that I saw online were of like low-end 8000 series graphics cards, which are pretty old, so those seem to work okay. And Linus did say that they couldn't use all of the display outputs on their graphics card anymore after this process. So yeah, this isn't the smartest thing to do to a graphics card. Again, if that wasn't immediately obvious from the beginning. So if you enjoyed this video, thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more ridiculous videos like this one. And yeah, until the next one, bye-bye.